Marcus Thompson was having one of those mornings where everything seemed to go wrong at once. His 7-year-old daughter, Emma, had spilled orange juice all over her school uniform. His coffee maker decided to break down, and now he was running 20 minutes late for the most important job interview of his life. The position at the accounting firm could finally provide the stability he desperately needed as a single father. He rushed through the busy downtown streets, Emma's small hand clasped tightly in his as they hurried toward her school. The morning air was crisp, and the sidewalks were crowded with other parents and commuters starting their day. Marcus checked his watch again, calculating whether he could still make it to the interview on time if traffic cooperated. "Daddy, you're walking too fast," Emma complained, her little legs struggling to keep up with his long strides. "Sorry, sweetheart." Marcus slowed down, reminding himself that his daughter's comfort was more important than his anxiety. "We're almost at your school." They were crossing the main intersection near Riverside Elementary when it happened. A woman in a dark business suit was walking ahead of them, talking animatedly on her phone. She appeared to be in her mid-30s, well-dressed and professional-looking. Her voice carried a tone of urgency as she spoke into the device. "No, you don't understand," she was saying into the phone. "The documents can't wait until next week. People need to know the truth about what happened at the facility. Lives are at stake here." Suddenly, without any warning, the woman stumbled. Her phone clattered to the pavement as she reached out desperately for something to steady herself. Her face had gone completely pale, and beads of sweat appeared on her forehead despite the cool morning air. She took 2 more unsteady steps before her legs gave out completely. Marcus watched in horror as she collapsed right there on the sidewalk in front of them. Her leather briefcase fell beside her, spilling some of its contents onto the concrete. Other pedestrians stopped and stared, but most seemed hesitant to get involved. In today's world, people were often afraid to help strangers. "Stay right here, Emma," Marcus instructed his daughter, gently moving her to stand against a nearby storefront. "Don't move from this spot." He rushed to the woman's side, his job interview immediately forgotten. She was conscious but clearly in distress, her breathing shallow and rapid. Her eyes darted around frantically as if she was looking for someone or something. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Marcus knelt beside her, checking for obvious injuries. "Should I call an ambulance?" The woman grabbed his wrist with surprising strength for someone who had just collapsed. "No hospitals," she whispered urgently. "Please, no hospitals. They'll find me there." Marcus was confused by her response, but he could see the genuine fear in her eyes. "Who will find you?" "What's wrong?" She tried to sit up but winced in pain. I think someone put something in my coffee this morning. I've been feeling strange for the last hour." Her voice was getting weaker. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I work for the Environmental Protection Agency." Marcus helped her lean against a nearby bench that someone had moved over. He noticed that her hands were trembling and her pupils seemed unusually dilated. If someone had indeed drugged her, she needed medical attention immediately. "Dr. Chen, even if someone did put something in your drink, you need to see a doctor. This could be serious." She shook her head weakly. "You don't understand. I was supposed to testify at a congressional hearing next week. I have evidence about a cover-up that goes all the way to the top. Chemical contamination that's been hidden from the public for years." Marcus glanced back at Emma, who was watching everything with wide, worried eyes. He felt torn between his responsibility to his daughter and his desire to help this woman who was clearly in trouble. Dr. Chen noticed his glance and seemed to understand his dilemma. "Is that your daughter? She's beautiful." Her voice was getting softer, and Marcus could see she was struggling to stay alert. "Yes, that's Emma. I was taking her to school." "Listen to me carefully," Dr. Chen said, gripping his arm again. "If something happens to me, if I don't make it to that hearing, thousands of people will continue to be poisoned. There's a factory upstate that's been dumping toxic chemicals into the groundwater for over a decade. The company has been paying off officials to keep it quiet." She reached toward her briefcase, which was still lying open on the sidewalk. Several manila folders had scattered, along with what looked like photographs and official documents. "Everything's in there. Test results, internal memos, financial records. It's all the proof needed to shut them down." Marcus could see that some of the documents had official government letterheads, and the photographs appeared to show industrial facilities and contaminated water sources. This was clearly much more serious than a simple medical emergency. "Why don't you just give this information to the police or the FBI?" Marcus asked. Dr. Chen let out a bitter laugh that turned into a cough. "Because some of them are involved too. I've been getting death threats for weeks. My apartment was broken into last month and someone's been following me. I was on my way to meet with a journalist when this happened. The situation was becoming more alarming by the minute. Marcus realized that this woman might not have simply collapsed from illness or exhaustion. If her story was true, someone might have deliberately tried to harm her to prevent her testimony. "What do you want me to do?" Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he was prepared for whatever she might ask of him. Dr. Chen's eyes were starting to close, but she fought to stay conscious. "Take the briefcase. Keep it safe. There's a business card inside for reporter James Mitchell at the Washington Herald. He's the only journalist I trust with this story." Marcus looked at the briefcase and then back at Dr. Chen. Getting involved in something like this could put both him and Emma in danger. But if this woman was telling the truth and if he walked away now, he might be condemning thousands of innocent people to continued poisoning. The sound of sirens in the distance broke through his thoughts. Someone had called for emergency services despite Dr. Chen's protests. As the ambulance approached, Marcus had only seconds to make a decision that would change everything. Marcus made his decision in an instant. As the ambulance pulled up to the curb, he quickly gathered the scattered documents and photographs, stuffing them back into Dr. Chen's briefcase. The weight of it surprised him. It was heavier than he expected, packed full of what appeared to be evidence. "I'll keep it safe," he whispered to Dr. Chen as the paramedics rushed toward them. Her eyes met his with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," she mouthed silently before the medical team took over. The paramedics immediately began checking her vital signs and asking questions about what had happened. Marcus stepped back holding the briefcase and noticed that Dr. Chen didn't mention anything about being poisoned or about the documents. She simply told them she had been feeling unwell and had fainted. "Are you a family member?" one of the paramedics asked Marcus. "No, I just happened to be here when she collapsed," he replied truthfully. As they loaded Dr. Chen into the ambulance, she managed to catch Marcus's eye one more time. She mouthed the words, "Trust no one," before the doors closed and the vehicle sped away toward the hospital. Marcus stood there for a moment, the briefcase feeling like it weighed 100 pounds in his hand. Emma ran over to him, her face full of concern. "Is the lady going to be okay, Daddy?" "I hope so, sweetheart." Marcus took her hand and started walking toward the school again. His mind was racing with everything that had just happened. He had gone from being a single father worried about a job interview to someone who might be carrying evidence of a major environmental conspiracy. After dropping Emma off at school, Marcus sat in his car in the parking lot, staring at the briefcase on the passenger seat. He was already 40 minutes late for his interview, but somehow that seemed unimportant now. He opened the case carefully and began examining its contents more thoroughly. The first thing he found was a business card for James Mitchell, investigative reporter at the Washington Herald, just as Dr. Chen had mentioned. There were also dozens of official-looking documents with EPA letterheads, test results showing dangerous levels of chemicals in water supplies, and internal company memos discussing ways to hide the contamination. One photograph particularly caught his attention. It showed a large industrial facility with smokestacks and what appeared to be waste discharge pipes running directly into a river. The photo was labeled Riverside Chemical Plant, Unauthorized Discharge Point B. Marcus's blood ran cold when he realized that this was less than 50 miles from where he lived. His phone rang, startling him from his examination of the documents. It was the accounting firm calling about his missed interview. "Mr. Thompson, we had you scheduled for 9 a.m. Are you still planning to come in?" Marcus looked at the briefcase again and made another life-changing decision. "I'm sorry, but I've had a family emergency. Could we possibly reschedule?" After rearranging the interview for the following week, Marcus drove home to his small apartment. He needed time to think about what he should do next. The responsible thing would be to call the police, but Dr. Chen's warning about not trusting anyone kept echoing in his mind. At home, Marcus spread the documents out on his kitchen table and began reading through them systematically. What he discovered made his stomach turn. The Riverside Chemical Plant had been dumping industrial waste containing benzene, lead, and other toxic substances into the local water supply for over 12 years. The contamination had been linked to increased rates of cancer, birth defects, and other serious health problems in nearby communities. Even worse, The documents showed that both company executives and government officials had known about the contamination, but had covered it up to avoid costly cleanup efforts and legal liability. There were records of bribes, falsified reports, and intimidation tactics used against anyone who tried to expose the truth. One memo from a company executive was particularly disturbing. The Chen woman is becoming a problem. Her scheduled testimony could cost us billions and result in criminal charges. We need to find a way to discredit her or prevent her from appearing at the hearing. Marcus realized that Dr. Chen's collapse might not have been random at all. Someone had deliberately tried to stop her from testifying, possibly by poisoning her, and now he had become the keeper of evidence that powerful people were willing to kill to protect. His phone rang again, this time showing an unknown number. Marcus hesitated before answering. "Hello, Mr. Thompson?" The voice was professional but somehow menacing. "I believe you have something that belongs to us." Marcus's heart started racing. "Who is this? How did you get my number?" "That's not important. What matters is that you return Dr. Chen's briefcase immediately. We know you took it from the scene this morning." "I don't know what you're talking about," Marcus lied, though his voice betrayed his nervousness. "Mr. Thompson, you have a lovely daughter. Emma, isn't it? 7 years old, attends Riverside Elementary, enjoys drawing and playing soccer. It would be unfortunate if something happened to her because her father made poor decisions." The threat against Emma sent a surge of both fear and anger through Marcus. "Stay away from my daughter, then return the briefcase. There's a trash can behind the Riverside Shopping Center. Put the case there tonight at midnight. Come alone and no one gets hurt." The line went dead, leaving Marcus staring at his phone in shock. These people had already found out who he was, where he lived, and where his daughter went to school. They had done all of this in just a few hours, which suggested they had significant resources and connections. Marcus looked at the documents spread across his table. Dr. Chen had risked everything to gather this evidence, and now she might be fighting for her life in a hospital bed. If he gave up the briefcase, thousands of people would continue to be slowly poisoned, and the people responsible would never face justice. But if he didn't give it up, Emma could be in danger. Marcus spent the rest of the day researching everything he could find about the Riverside chemical plant and the contamination issue. He discovered that several environmental activists and whistleblowers had died under suspicious circumstances over the past few years, all while investigating chemical companies. As evening approached, Marcus realized he needed help. He couldn't handle the situation alone, and he couldn't put Emma at risk. But Dr. Chen's warning about not trusting anyone made it difficult to know who to turn to. He thought about the business card for James Mitchell, the reporter. If Dr. Chen trusted him, maybe that was Marcus's best option. But first, he needed to make sure Emma was safe. He called his sister Linda, who lived 2 hours away. "Linda, I need a huge favor. Can Emma stay with you for a few days? I'll explain everything later, but it's really important." His sister could hear the stress in his voice and agreed without asking too many questions. Marcus picked up Emma from her after-school program and drove her to Linda's house, telling her it was a surprise visit to see her aunt and cousins. As he hugged Emma goodbye, Marcus silently promised that he would find a way to both protect her and do the right thing with the evidence he now carried. After ensuring Emma's safety at his sister's house, Marcus drove back home as darkness fell over the city. The deadline for dropping off the briefcase was still hours away, but he had no intention of giving up the evidence. Instead, he spent the evening making copies of every document, photograph, and piece of evidence in the case. He used the scanner at the local library's 24-hour computer center, uploading everything to multiple cloud storage accounts and email addresses. If something happened to him, at least the evidence would still exist somewhere. The process took several hours, and Marcus found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, paranoid that he was being watched. At 11:30 p.m., Marcus made his way to the Riverside Shopping Center. He had placed the original briefcase in the designated trash can as instructed, but he had replaced all the documents with blank paper and old newspapers. He hoped this would buy him enough time to get the real evidence to the reporter. From his car parked across the street, Marcus watched as a black sedan pulled up to the trash can at exactly midnight. 2 men in dark suits got out, retrieved the briefcase, and drove away without even checking its contents. Marcus waited another 20 minutes before leaving, constantly checking his mirrors for any sign that he was being followed. The next morning, Marcus called the Washington Herald and asked to speak with James Mitchell. The receptionist told him that Mr. Mitchell was out of town on assignment, but would be back the following day. Marcus left a message saying it was urgent and related to Dr. Chen's environmental investigation. While waiting for the reporter to return his call, Marcus decided to visit Dr. Chen at the hospital. He needed to know if she was recovering and to tell her that he still had the evidence she had entrusted to him. At City General Hospital, Marcus learned that Dr. Chen was in the intensive care unit. The nurses wouldn't give him specific information about her condition, since he wasn't family, but they did tell him that she was stable and conscious. "I'm a friend of hers," Marcus explained to the nurse at the ICU desk. "She collapsed right in front of me yesterday morning. I just want to make sure she's okay." The nurse studied his face for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. "She's been asking about a man with a briefcase." "Was that you?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, I helped her when she fell. Room 314, but visiting hours end in 30 minutes. Marcus found Dr. Chen's room and was shocked by her appearance. She was connected to several monitors and had an IV drip in her arm. Her face was pale, but her eyes were alert and focused. "You came," she whispered when she saw him enter the room. "How are you feeling?" Marcus pulled a chair close to her bed. "Like I've been poisoned," she replied with a weak smile. "The doctors confirmed it. Someone put industrial solvent in my coffee. If you hadn't helped me, I probably would have died on that sidewalk." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. His decision to help her had literally saved her life. "I still have your briefcase," he told her quietly. "Well, copies of everything anyway. Some people called me and threatened my daughter, so I had to give them the original case, but I kept all the documents." Dr. Chen's eyes widened. "They found you that quickly? These people have resources I didn't even know about." She paused, thinking. "Did you contact James Mitchell yet?" "I left him a message. He's supposed to call me back today." "Good. James is one of the few journalists left who can't be bought or intimidated. But you need to be very careful. If they've already threatened your daughter, they won't hesitate to follow through." Marcus told her about sending Emma to stay with his sister, and Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. "Smart move. But you should know that this goes deeper than just one chemical plant. I've been investigating a network of companies that have been covering up environmental disasters across the country. The Riverside plant is just the beginning." She reached under her pillow and pulled out a small flash drive. "I managed to hide this before I collapsed. It contains a list of all the other facilities involved, plus financial records showing how the cover-up has been funded." Marcus took the flash drive, marveling at Dr. Chen's preparation and foresight. Even while being poisoned, she had managed to protect the most crucial evidence. "There's something else you should know," Dr. Chen continued. "I think there's a leak in the EPA. Someone has been feeding information about my investigation to the chemical companies. That's how they knew to poison me before my testimony." "Who do you suspect?" "My supervisor, Richard Hawthorne. He's been acting strange lately, asking too many questions about my progress and trying to delay my testimony. I think he's being paid to sabotage the investigation from the inside." Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID showed Washington Herald. "That might be James Mitchell," Marcus said, showing Dr. Chen the phone. "Take it," she urged, "but be careful what you say over the phone. These people have the technology to listen in on conversations." Marcus answered the call and confirmed that it was indeed James Mitchell returning his message. "Dr. Chen told me to call you," Marcus said carefully. "She said you were working together on an important story. Is Sarah okay?" "I heard she was in the hospital, but no one would tell me anything. She's recovering. Can we meet in person? This isn't something we should discuss over the phone." James agreed to meet Marcus at a small diner outside the city in 2 hours. As Marcus prepared to leave the hospital, Dr. Chen grabbed his hand. "Be very careful who you trust," she warned. "These people have infiltrated government agencies, law enforcement, and even some news organizations. James is clean, but there might be others at his newspaper who aren't." Marcus promised to be cautious and left the hospital with the flash drive hidden in his jacket pocket. As he walked to his car, he noticed the same black sedan from the previous night parked across the street. 2 men were sitting inside, and one of them was talking on a phone while watching the hospital entrance. Realizing he was being followed, Marcus changed his plans. Instead of driving directly to meet James Mitchell, he spent the next hour taking a complicated route through the city, making random stops and turns to lose his tail. He even went into a shopping mall and exited through a different entrance to make sure he wasn't being tracked. Finally confident that he had lost the surveillance team, Marcus drove to the diner where he was supposed to meet the reporter. James Mitchell turned out to be a middle-aged man with graying hair and the tired look of someone who had seen too much corruption and injustice. "You're taking a big risk helping Sarah," James said after Marcus had explained the situation. "These chemical companies don't hesitate to eliminate people who threaten their profits." Marcus handed over copies of the documents and the flash drive. "Dr. Chen said people need to know the truth. If we don't speak up, thousands of people will keep getting poisoned." James examined the documents with the practiced eye of an experienced investigative reporter. His expression grew more serious with each page he reviewed. "This is explosive," he finally said. "This evidence could bring down not just the chemical companies, but several government officials who have been covering this up. The story could run in tomorrow's edition if I can verify some of these sources tonight. What about the people who are threatening me? Will publishing this story make Emma and me safer or put us in more danger?" James considered the question carefully. In the short term, it might increase the danger. But once this story is public, killing you or your daughter would only draw more attention to the cover-up. Your best protection is making sure this information gets out before they can stop you. James Mitchell worked through the night, contacting sources and verifying the information in Dr. Chen's documents. By dawn, he had confirmed enough details to publish the story. Marcus spent those same hours in a cheap motel room outside the city, afraid to go home in case the surveillance team was waiting for him there. At 6 a.m., Marcus's phone rang. It was James calling with news. "The story is going live in 1 hour," the reporter told him. "I've also sent copies of all the evidence to the FBI's Environmental Crimes Unit and to 3 other major newspapers. Even if something happens to me or my newspaper, the truth is going to come out." Marcus felt a mixture of relief and terror. Once the story was published, there would be no going back. He would forever be known as the man who helped expose one of the biggest environmental cover-ups in recent history. "There's something else," James continued. "I did some digging on that EPA supervisor Dr. Chen suspected. Richard Hawthorne has been receiving payments from a consulting firm that's actually a front company for the chemical industry. He's definitely the leak." As Marcus hung up the phone, he realized that his normal life was over. He could never go back to being just a single father looking for an accounting job. He was now a key witness in a case that would make national headlines. The story broke at 7 a.m. with a headline that read, "Toxic cover-up. Chemical companies and government officials hide decade of contamination." Within hours, it was being picked up by news outlets across the country. Marcus watched the coverage from his motel room, seeing Dr. Chen's evidence displayed on television screens and hearing reporters discuss the implications of the cover-up. By noon, FBI agents were raiding the Riverside chemical plant and several other facilities mentioned in the documents. Richard Hawthorne had been arrested at his home, and the EPA was promising a full investigation into the contamination and the cover-up. Marcus's phone had been ringing constantly with calls from other reporters wanting interviews, but he had been ignoring them on James Mitchell's advice. The fewer people who knew where he was, the safer he would be until the immediate danger passed. Around 2 p.m., Marcus received a call from an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered, "Mr. Thompson, this is Agent Sarah Rodriguez with the FBI Environmental Crimes Unit. We need to speak with you about the evidence you provided to the Washington Herald." Marcus was skeptical. "How do I know you're really FBI?" "You can call the main FBI number and ask to be transferred to our unit. We're the ones who arrested Richard Hawthorne this morning, based on your information." After verifying her identity through the official FBI phone system, Marcus agreed to meet Agent Rodriguez at a secure location. She turned out to be a serious woman in her 40s who seemed genuinely committed to environmental justice. "What you and Dr. Chen have done is incredibly brave," Agent Rodriguez told him. "But I need you to understand that this investigation is just beginning. The documents you provided show a conspiracy that involves dozens of companies and government officials across multiple states." She showed Marcus a map covered with red pins, each representing a contaminated site that had been covered up using similar methods to the Riverside plant. "We estimate that over 2 million people have been exposed to dangerous chemicals. Because of this cover-up network, you've helped us expose the largest environmental crime in U.S. history." Marcus stared at the map in amazement. He had known the situation was serious, but he hadn't realized the scope of the conspiracy. "What happens now?" he asked. "We'll need you to testify before a grand jury and possibly in criminal trials. Dr. Chen will also be a key witness once she's fully recovered. But first, we need to make sure you're both safe." Agent Rodriguez explained that several of the people named in the documents had fled the country, and others were likely to become desperate as more arrests were made. The FBI was offering Marcus and Emma protection through the Witness Protection Program if necessary. "I don't want to have to change our identities and move away," Marcus said. "Emma has been through enough disruption in her life already. We understand, but the people you've exposed have billions of dollars at stake. They've already tried to kill Dr. Chen, and they've threatened your daughter. We can't guarantee your safety without taking precautions." Marcus spent the rest of the afternoon meeting with federal prosecutors and FBI agents, providing additional details about everything that had happened since Dr. Chen's collapse. They were particularly interested in the phone call threatening Emma and the surveillance team that had been following him. That evening, Marcus was finally able to call his sister Linda and check on Emma. "She's fine," Linda assured him. "She thinks this is just a fun extended visit with her cousins." "But Marcus, I saw the news stories. Is this really about that woman who collapsed in front of you?" Marcus explained the situation to his sister, who was shocked but supportive of his decision to help expose the truth. "Emma can stay here as long as necessary," Linda said. "But you need to be careful. These sound like dangerous people." After ending the call with his sister, Marcus received another call from James Mitchell. "The story is exploding," the reporter told him. "We've had over 10 million people read it online, and it's trending on every social media platform. Congress is already calling for hearings, and the stock prices of the chemical companies involved have crashed." "Any word on Dr. Chen?" "She's being discharged from the hospital tomorrow. The FBI is providing her with protection too. She wants to thank you in person for saving her life and protecting the evidence." Marcus was relieved to hear that Dr. Chen was recovering. Without her courage in gathering the evidence and her quick thinking in trusting him with the briefcase, none of this would have been possible. The next morning brought more dramatic developments. Several more government officials had been arrested, including a congressman who had been taking bribes to block environmental legislation. 3 chemical company executives had been indicted on conspiracy charges, and the EPA was facing a complete reorganization. Marcus met Dr. Chen at a secure FBI facility where she was staying until the immediate threats subsided. She looked much healthier than she had in the hospital, though still tired from her ordeal. "I can never thank you enough," she said, embracing Marcus like an old friend. "When I collapsed on that sidewalk, I thought my investigation was over, and all those people would continue to suffer in silence." "You did all the hard work," Marcus replied. "I just helped get your evidence to the right people." Dr. Chen smiled. "You did much more than that. You risked your life and your daughter's safety to make sure the truth came out. That takes real courage." As they talked, Agent Rodriguez joined them with updates on the investigation. "We've made 15 more arrests since yesterday," she reported. "The chemical companies are starting to cooperate, hoping to avoid even more serious charges. We think we can clean up most of the contaminated sites within 5 years." Marcus thought about all the families who would benefit from cleaner water and air because of the investigation. The scared single father who had helped a stranger on the sidewalk had somehow become part of something much bigger than himself. "When can I go back to my normal life?" Marcus asked. Agent Rodriguez looked at him seriously. "Mr. Thompson, after what you've done, I don't think your life will ever be completely normal again." "But that's not necessarily a bad thing." 3 weeks after the story broke, Marcus found himself sitting in a congressional hearing room surrounded by cameras and reporters. He had never imagined that helping a stranger on the sidewalk would lead to testifying before Congress, but here he was, preparing to tell his story to a room full of senators and representatives. Dr. Chen sat beside him at the witness table, looking professional and determined despite everything she had been through. The bruises from her collapse had faded, but Marcus could see that the experience had changed her. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had survived an attempt on her life and lived to expose the truth. "Mr. Thompson," the committee chairman began, "can you tell us in your own words what happened on the morning of March 15th when Dr. Chen collapsed in front of you?" Marcus had practiced this testimony with the FBI lawyers, but sitting in front of the congressional committee still made him nervous. He took a deep breath and began recounting the events that had changed his life forever as he spoke about finding the documents in Dr. Chen's briefcase and his decision to protect them despite threats against his daughter. Several committee members leaned forward in their chairs. The room was completely silent except for the sound of cameras clicking and Marcus's voice describing the conspiracy he had helped uncover. What went through your mind when you received that threatening phone call about your daughter? Asked Senator Williams, the ranking member of the Environmental Committee. Marcus paused, remembering the fear he had felt that day. I was terrified. These people had found out everything about me and Emma in just a few hours. They knew where she went to school, what she liked to do for fun. It made me realize how powerful and dangerous they were. But you didn't give up the evidence even when your daughter was threatened? No, ma'am. I couldn't let thousands of people keep getting poisoned just to protect myself. I found a way to keep Emma safe and make sure Dr. Chen's evidence got to the right people. The hearing continued for several hours, with both Marcus and Dr. Chen providing detailed testimony about the cover-up network they had exposed. Dr. Chen presented additional evidence she had gathered during her investigation, including recordings of phone calls where company executives discussed bribing government officials. One of the most dramatic moments came when Dr. Chen played a recording of Richard Hawthorne, her former EPA supervisor, discussing how to sabotage her testimony. Sarah's getting too close to the truth. Hawthorne's voice filled the hearing room. We need to delay her congressional appearance until we can find a way to discredit her research. And if you can't discredit her? Asked another voice on the recording. Then we'll have to consider more permanent solutions. The committee members looked shocked by the casual way Hawthorne discussed, potentially harming Dr. Chen. Several representatives began asking pointed questions about how deeply the corruption had penetrated government agencies. After the hearing, Marcus and Dr. Chen were approached by dozens of reporters wanting follow-up interviews. James Mitchell, who had broken the original story, walked with them through the crowd of journalists. How does it feel to know that your actions have led to the cleanup of over 50 contaminated sites? One reporter asked Marcus. It feels good to know that families won't have to worry about their drinking water being poisoned, Marcus replied. But I also feel sad that it took so long for the truth to come out. People have been suffering from these chemicals for years. Over the following months, the environmental scandal continued to dominate news headlines. More arrests were made almost weekly as the FBI investigation expanded. The chemical companies involved faced billions of dollars in fines and cleanup costs. Several had already declared bankruptcy, rather than pay for the environmental damage they had caused. Marcus found that his life had indeed changed in ways he never could have imagined. The accounting job he had been rushing to interview for the morning he met Dr. Chen now seemed like a distant memory. Instead, he had been offered a position with an environmental watchdog organization that wanted his help investigating other potential cover-ups. We need someone with your instincts and courage, the organization's director had told him, someone who isn't afraid to do the right thing even when it's dangerous. Marcus had accepted the job, partly because it paid well enough to support Emma, but mainly because he felt called to continue the work he had accidentally stumbled into. He had discovered that he had a talent for investigative work and a passion for protecting people from environmental harm. Emma had returned from her extended stay with her aunt, and Marcus had been honest with her about why she had needed to go away for a while. She was proud of her father for helping people, though she didn't fully understand the complexity of what he had done. "Daddy, are you famous now?" she asked one evening as they watched a news report about the latest arrests in the case. "I guess I am. A little bit," Marcus admitted. "But more importantly, we helped make sure that people have cleaner water to drink." "Like the water at my school?" "Exactly like that, sweetheart. Now kids at schools everywhere will have safer water to drink." Dr. Chen had also found her life transformed by the events. She had been promoted within the EPA and was now heading up a new task force dedicated to preventing future environmental cover-ups. She had also become something of a celebrity in environmental circles, speaking at conferences and universities about the importance of scientific integrity and whistleblower protection. Marcus and Dr. Chen had developed a close friendship through their shared experience. They met regularly for coffee to discuss ongoing investigations and to check on each other's well-being. The trauma of what they had been through had created a bond between them that neither had expected. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you had just walked past me that morning," Dr. Chen said during one of their meetings. Marcus smiled. "I couldn't have done that. Emma always says we should help people when they need it. I was just following my daughter's advice." The FBI had eventually determined that Marcus and Emma were safe from retaliation. Most of the people who had threatened them were now in prison or had fled the country. The few remaining conspirators were more focused on avoiding prosecution than on seeking revenge. Marcus was able to move back to his apartment, though he remained more cautious than before. He had installed better security systems and always checked his surroundings carefully when picking Emma up from school. One unexpected development was the flood of job offers Marcus received from law firms, environmental groups, and even government agencies. His combination of analytical skills and proven courage made him highly sought after in the environmental justice field. "You've become something of a legend," Agent Rodriguez told him during one of their regular check-ins. "Single father saves whistleblower and exposes massive conspiracy. It's the kind of story that gives people hope." Marcus appreciated the recognition, but he was most proud of the concrete results of their actions. The Riverside chemical plant had been shut down permanently, and the company was paying for extensive cleanup efforts. Similar cleanup operations were underway at contaminated sites across the country. Medical testing had revealed that hundreds of families in the affected areas had elevated levels of toxic chemicals in their blood, but early treatment was helping prevent serious health problems. Several children who had been showing signs of developmental delays were already improving after being moved away from contaminated water sources. The legal proceedings were expected to continue for years, with multiple criminal trials and civil lawsuits working their way through the courts. Marcus would likely be called to testify many more times as various defendants faced justice for their roles in the conspiracy. Despite the ongoing legal obligations, Marcus felt optimistic about the future. He had found meaningful work that aligned with his values. Emma was thriving in school, and they had both discovered that they were stronger and more resilient than they had ever known. "I'm proud of you, Daddy," Emma said one evening as they were reading together before bedtime. "You helped a lot of people just like superheroes do." Marcus hugged his daughter tightly, reflecting on how a single moment of compassion had changed both of their lives forever. The scared single father who had been running late for a job interview had somehow found the courage to take on powerful corporations and corrupt officials. And in the process, he had discovered that ordinary people really could make an extraordinary difference in the world. 2 years after that fateful morning when Dr. Sarah Chen collapsed on the sidewalk, Marcus Thompson stood before a packed auditorium at Georgetown University, delivering a keynote speech about environmental justice and civic responsibility. The transformation from nervous single father to respected advocate still amazed him sometimes. "The morning I helped Dr. Chen, I was just a man worried about being late for a job interview," Marcus told the audience of students, faculty, and environmental activists. "I never imagined that simple act of human decency would lead to exposing one of the largest environmental conspiracies in American history." In the front row, Emma sat with Dr. Chen, both beaming with pride as Marcus shared their story with a new generation of potential activists. Emma was now 9 years old and had grown comfortable with her father's public role, often accompanying him to speaking engagements during school breaks. The results of their investigation had exceeded everyone's expectations. Over 200 people had been arrested in connection with the environmental cover-up network, including corporate executives, government officials, and lobbyists. The cleanup efforts had cost the chemical industry over $50 billion, but they had resulted in cleaner water and air for millions of Americans. Marcus had been instrumental in several follow-up investigations through his work with the Environmental Justice Coalition. His natural investigative instincts and his ability to connect with ordinary people affected by environmental crimes had made him invaluable to the organization. One of his most successful cases involved a mining company that had been secretly dumping mercury into a river system in Montana. Marcus had spent weeks interviewing local families who reported mysterious health problems, eventually uncovering a pattern of contamination that had been hidden for over 15 years. "The key is listening to communities," Marcus explained to the Georgetown audience. "People living near these facilities often know something is wrong, long before scientists can prove it." My job is to take their concerns seriously and help them find the evidence they need. After his speech, Marcus was approached by a young graduate student named David Kim, who was working on his thesis about corporate environmental crimes. "Mr. Thompson, I've been following your work since the Riverside chemical case," David said enthusiastically. "I'm particularly interested in how you've been able to build trust with communities that have been ignored by government agencies." Marcus smiled, remembering his own nervousness the first time he had testified before Congress. The secret is authenticity. These communities have been lied to and dismissed for years. They can tell immediately if someone is genuinely there to help or just looking for a career boost. David nodded thoughtfully. "Would you be willing to supervise an internship? I'd love to learn more about grassroots environmental investigation." "Send me your resume," Marcus replied. "We're always looking for dedicated people who want to make a real difference." Later that evening, Marcus, Emma, and Dr. Chen had dinner at a quiet restaurant near the university. It had become a tradition for them to share a meal whenever Marcus gave a speech in the Washington area. "How are you feeling about the anniversary coming up?" Dr. Chen asked, referring to the third anniversary of her collapse, which had become an unofficial holiday for environmental activists. "It's surreal," Marcus admitted. "Sometimes I wake up and can't believe this is my life now. 3 years ago, I was struggling to pay rent and worried about finding a stable job. Now I'm traveling around the country, working with communities to expose environmental crimes." Emma looked up from her coloring book. "Are you happier now, Daddy?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "I'm definitely more fulfilled, sweetheart. Helping people and protecting the environment gives me a sense of purpose I never had before, but I also miss some of the simplicity of our old life." "Do you ever regret getting involved?" Dr. Chen asked quietly. "Your life would certainly be less complicated if you had just walked past me that morning." Marcus shook his head firmly. "Never. What we did saved lives and protected countless families from being poisoned." Emma has grown up understanding that ordinary people have the power to fight injustice. That's worth any amount of complication. The success of their investigation had inspired similar efforts around the world. Environmental activists in other countries had used their model to expose cover-ups in Brazil, India, and Eastern Europe. Marcus regularly received emails from people thanking him for showing them that one person really could make a difference. One of the most gratifying aspects of Marcus's new career was seeing the long-term results of their work. Children in formerly contaminated areas were showing improved test scores and better health outcomes. Property values had recovered in neighborhoods where cleanup efforts had been completed. Several communities had even established environmental monitoring programs to prevent future contamination. Marcus had also become involved in legislative efforts to strengthen environmental protection laws. He had testified before Congress multiple times, helping to pass new regulations that made it harder for companies to hide environmental damage and easier for whistleblowers to come forward safely. The Riverside Chemical Act, as the new legislation was informally known, included provisions for mandatory environmental impact reporting, increased penalties for corporate cover-ups, and better protection for employees who reported environmental crimes. Dr. Chen had been nominated for several prestigious environmental awards, but she always insisted that Marcus share the recognition. "None of this would have been possible without his courage and integrity," she told reporters. "He risked everything to protect evidence that he could have easily ignored." As they finished dinner that evening, Emma asked a question that caught both adults by surprise. "Daddy, when I grow up, can I work with you and Dr. Chen to help protect the environment?" Marcus and Dr. Chen exchanged smiles. Emma had been exposed to environmental issues from a young age because of their work, and she had developed a genuine passion for conservation and social justice. "If that's what you really want to do, sweetheart, we'd be honored to work with you," Marcus replied. "But remember, you can help protect the environment in many different ways. You could be a scientist, a lawyer, a teacher, or anything else that interests you. Or you could be like your father," Dr. Chen added, "and just be a good person who does the right thing when the opportunity presents itself." As they walked back to their hotel, Marcus reflected on how much their lives had changed since that morning 3 years ago. He thought about all the people who were breathing cleaner air and drinking safer water because of the investigation they had triggered. He thought about the families who no longer had to worry about their children developing cancer from contaminated groundwater. Most importantly, He thought about the lesson Emma was learning from their experience. She was growing up understanding that individual actions could have enormous consequences, and that standing up for what's right was worth any personal cost. "Thank you," Emma said sleepily as Marcus tucked her into bed at the hotel. "For what, sweetheart?" "For helping that lady when she was hurt. It made everything better for lots of people." Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead, marveling once again at how a simple act of compassion had changed their lives and the lives of countless others. The single father who had been worried about a job interview had discovered something far more valuable than financial security. He had found his calling as a protector of communities and a champion for environmental justice. As he turned off the lights and settled into his own bed, Marcus smiled at the thought that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to make a difference. The work was far from over, but he faced the future with confidence, knowing that he and Emma were part of something much larger than themselves. They were part of a movement of ordinary people doing extraordinary things to protect the planet and each other. The woman who had collapsed before the Yao single dad had indeed been carrying something that could silence a nation. But instead of being silenced, the truth had found its voice, and it was louder and more powerful than anyone could have imagined.